One. Time is 5:15, and I'd like to call our board meeting for June the 13th, 2023 to order at 5:15. Welcome everybody watching YouTube live stream and the few people that are here. Thank you for being with us. The board reserves the right to change the order of items on the agenda, and if there are any recommendations, they'll likely be done in the beginning. So let's begin with our tribute. In partnership with the tribes who called Phoenix their home first, we acknowledge and respect the land our schools are built on. We commit to being a strong partner with any and all tribal nations who entrust their children to our schools. We are grateful and honored to be partners. Mrs. Valencia, may we please have a roll call vote? I'm sorry, roll call for attendance, please.
Roll call for Ms. Jessica Bueno,
Here.
Mr. Regional Carrillo, Ms. Erica de la Rosa, Dr. Alicia Vink, and Ms. Carmen Trujillo. I understand that
Here.
Ms. Dr. Alicia Vink is online.
She's
On Zoom?
online. She might have stepped away.
Can you
but
hear me?
There she goes.
Okay,
Can you hear me?
thank you.
Yes,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Wonderful. With that, we do have a quorum present and we are able to move on with today's meeting. Mr. Manley, will you please have the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. With that, we'll move on to our adoption of the agenda. Dr. Davila Hagikat, do we have any recommendations for our agenda this evening?
Yes, good evening, President Trujillo,
Good
Vice
evening.
President Bueno, members of the board, cabinet. We recommend that you adopt the agenda as presented.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to adopt our agenda as presented?
Jessica Bueno, so moved.
Thank you. I will
Reggie Carrillo, I second.
There he is. Hey, Reggie. Let the minutes reflect that Mr. Carrillo's online and we've got 4 board members here. Thank you, Mr. Carrillo. And with that, may we please have a roll call vote to adopt our agenda this evening, Mrs. Valencia, when you have, when you're done updating that. Thank you.
Thank you. Roll call vote for Ms. Jessica Bueno,
Aye.
Mr. Regional Carrillo,
Aye.
Ms. Erica de la Rosa, Dr. Alicia Vink,
Aye,
and
aye.
Carmen Trujillo.
Aye. Thank you all very much. With that, our agenda is approved. And we will move on to our awards, recognition, and announcements. The floor is yours, Dr. Davila Hagikat.
Thank you. We have a couple of announcements today. As we finish the 2020-23 school year, we celebrated our promoting preschoolers, kindergarten students, and 8th graders. Our preschoolers and kindergarten students are getting a great start to their educational journey in Phoenix #1, and we want to wish our promoting 8th graders much success in high school. We are incredibly proud of our students, and we are anxious to see their successes. Best to all, and I believe we have a presentation to show some of these babies. And if we don't, it's okay because we can envision the whole thing. A lot of us were present at these events. That's how we're doing it today. And I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Gonzalez to continue our celebrations.
Good evening. We recently celebrated the soft opening of the new Phoenix Elementary Family Center. At the center, families will be able to participate in hands-on family workshops, adult education classes, family socials, events, and get connected to community resources and referrals, as well as have access to computers, the internet, and many, many more things. We look forward to our official grand opening and providing support to our families in late July. And our next announcement, thanks to Don Baumgardner and our District Arch Committee, we're proud to receive a donation from the It Gets Better project for $10,000. The mission of this project is to uplift, empower, and connect lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer youth around the globe through the power of storytelling so that we can show our LGBTQ plus youth, their allies, and the public at large that it does in fact get better. The ARCH stands for Accept, Respect, Connect, and Hear. This committee is making plans now to be able to work on their project and expect to include visual as well as spoken and written stories to promote the message. We look forward to bringing you updates on that in the future. And finally, Phoenix #1 joins others around the world in recognizing Pride Month. Pride Month is June 1st through June 30th. And it's a time where we celebrate and recognize the LGBTQ plus community and their contributions to society. We stand in solidarity with their fight for equality, acceptance, and human rights. Thank you.
Before I turn it over to you, I also want Dr. Alishire to share with us about our PBIS accomplishments.
Good evening, governing board, cabinet members of our community. It is my absolute pleasure to share with you some celebrations. Over the weekend, we found out that 8 of our schools were recognized by ADE as outstanding models of the PBIS program. That puts us third in the entire state in terms of the number of districts organized, only behind Paradise Valley and Kyrene School District. That work was done largely by the incredible PBIS teams that are each and every one of the school sites and the leadership of our principals, and is their accomplishment, and they're looking forward to celebrating it come August when everyone comes back. So congratulations to them.
Those are all of our recognitions and announcements. Thank you.
Thank you both very much. And thank you, Dr. Gonzalez, for the extra heartfelt touch on our Pride Month. It is a very, very important thing that we do show our solidarity and let our kids know that this is a safe space for them, and let our staff know as well that this is who we are. And I'm really excited to hear that in the awards and recognitions this go around. So let's move on to our superintendent's report. The floor is yours again, Dr. Davila Hagikat.
Thank you. So I want to start with gratitude again, and first to share our gratitude towards our board as we were able to really go out there and reduce inequities based on our compensation study. And this was through the efforts, first of all, the approval and the support that our board has given us, and also our human resource team. They just really had a successful completion of that compensation study and implementation of our new salary schedule and salary increases. The time and effort that went into this project was a huge endeavor, and there were many people behind the scenes to help bring this to fruition. I am proud to be part of that Phoenix #1 team, and incredibly grateful that we have such department that allows us to get our goal met. And so thank you to our HR department as well. We also just completed our insurance open enrollment for all our employees, and anyone that's listening out there, tell a friend that Phoenix #1 continues to provide 100% employee paid PPO medical and PPO dental insurance. And we want to extend a special appreciation to Crystal Senesi for really keeping us on track and really putting all of herself into making sure that our employees were able to get those benefits in a timely manner. Lastly, I want to share more gratitude for our business partners for the recent donation to the district totaling $12,500. Dr. Gonzalez already mentioned our 10,000 donor, and we also have from Steam Door Grand that has given a $2,500 donation. So we're grateful for those financial supports as well as other supports that we receive. And with that, I'll turn it back to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. With that, we will go right into our board member reports. Do you have any reports this evening, Vice President Bueno?
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to share again, just congratulations to all our eighth graders that promoted to high school. It was just very beautiful to attend all their ceremonies and just see their growth throughout the years. They went through a lot through the pandemic. So just to be able to see their successes continue to high school is very motivating. And then I would like to share to our community access to some of the swimming pools and heat relief centers. So the city has a total of 18 pools, and throughout our community, I'm going to highlight the ones that we're going to have access to because they're not on a full, every pool isn't fully opened. So first we have Encanto off 15th Avenue McDowell. That's in our Kenilworth, Hurd, and Magnet community. That pool will be open from June 3rd through June 29th and closed on Fridays. Second, we have Harmon, which is at Fifth Avenue, Buckeye, serving our Lowell, Bethune, Dunbar, and Herrera community. That pool will be open July 3rd through July 30th, closed on Fridays. And last, we have University Pool at 9th Avenue, Van Buren, serving our Capitol, Dunbar, and Kenilworth schools. That's July. University is July 3rd through the 30th. And then for the heat relief network, there's a lot of different stations that either provide cooling opportunities, heat relief with water. So there's also access to water and other methods of relief. And that can be found at phoenix.gov/heat/resources. So everybody out there, please stay safe and cool and drink a lot of water.
Thank you, Vice President Bueno. I would like to echo your sentiments and thank you for the extra information for our community. It really was a pleasure to participate and get to see our eighth graders turn into high schoolers, high school freshmen. I really want to give a shout out to the speakers of the class that gave, such great touching stories and encouragement to the rest of their classmates, and thank our guest speakers that showed up for our children as well. I really enjoyed the presentation, the camaraderie, and just the empowerment that our families got to see as well. So thank you all very much. And do we have any more board reports from the team online?
No, just a huge thank you to Vice President Bueno for being able to attend the opening of the Family Empowerment Center and do the ribbon cutting. I didn't get to attend during that time period. I did go afterwards when nobody was there. And so thank you to the Kenilworth principal, to the team at the Family Empowerment Center for just hosting me and giving me a quick little tour of the center. And I'm happy to support in any way I can to make sure that we have the appropriate relevant resources that address our families' needs in the community. And then a huge thank you to Dr. Gonzalez, Superintendent Hagigat, for the LGBTQ, for reading that as someone who identifies as queer, as gay, who's in a same-sex marriage. It means a lot to someone like me who didn't necessarily have the easiest pathway in education to get to where I wanted to go, and to be seen does clear that pathway a lot to allow us to share our story so that we can be given the resources to achieve success, just like our counterparts. So thank you so much. It means a lot, especially during this month. And then a big thank you to everyone, to the principals, to the teams at each of the school sites for having us at the promotion, for everything that it took to organizing those promotions post-pandemic. They're wonderful to see. I enjoyed being there, and it was such a happy moment at each of the school sites. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you. I thought of one more thing. We gave out a lot of scholarships. I feel like I heard more this year than I have in the past. So thanks to the Legion, all the extra partners that showed up for our kids, and Phoenix Union High School, those ones as well. So thank you and good job, kids, for earning that money and setting yourself up for success. And with that, we will move on to our community communications. Do we have any this evening? Mrs. Valencia?
We do not have any electronic and we do not have any in person.
All right. With that, we'll move on to our consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve our consent agenda as presented?
Jessica Bueno, so moved.
Alicia Fink, I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, may we please have a roll call vote to approve our consent agenda?
Roll call for Ms. Jessica Bueno,
Aye.
Mr. Regional Carrillo,
Aye.
Dr. Alicia Vink,
Aye.
and Ms. Carmen Trujillo.
Aye.
Thank you.
With that, our consent agenda passes and we'll move on to item 6.1 and get to hear about our grade 3 reading and math.
Thank you again. I'd like to invite Dr. Lloyd and Dr. Gonzalez to share with us about our academic progress.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, our viewing public, as well as those of us in the audience this evening. It's my great pleasure to introduce Dr. Lloyd. We've had many opportunities to see his passion with our student information. And we've been spending a lot of time the last couple of days really looking at how we help to influence our achievement in terms of student achievement. Am I not hitting that right? So we're going to start again with our inputs, outputs, and outcomes to look at our theory of action. For our draft goal number 1 and number 2, we had the percent of third graders who are passing on the reading and math as the AASA is going to increase from 28% on August 2023 to 52% by August 2027. And so our inputs for that include teacher training and support, evidence-based curriculum resources, and interventions for those students who need additional support. Our outputs then, are including highly trained teachers, measurable growth goals, and access to personalized learning and supports. Then, of course, that means our outcomes are the increased literacy and fluency for both reading and math, and increased confidence to access challenging curriculum. We know that this is an important benchmark for our students when they hit this third grade level, because it really does accelerate their opportunities to access curriculum if they're on grade level or close to grade level by third grade. Now I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Lloyd to talk through some of our data points.
Madam President, members of the board, in person and online, and our community, in person and online, thank you for having me today. I'm grateful to be able to be here again and present some additional data. Today, what I will be presenting is some of our state data that we have from what is called the Arizona Academic Standards Assessment. This is a yearly federally and state mandated assessment that evaluates our students' proficiency with grade level standards. And so this was administered in April. So I'm coming now to share the results for our third grade cohort. If I had a headline for this, it would be some stagnation and deflation. This is not the greatest news, but it's what I have to share with you. And also we recognize that across the state, there are challenges, and across the country right now with trying to recover. We're still in recovery mode from some of the challenges that we have from the pandemic. So we'll start with early literacy. And when I'm sharing these data, we're talking about, again, proficiency with grade level standards. So the goal is to have students pass the assessment and show that they're proficient with third grade ELA standards. So your passing colors that you see on here are green and blue, which are proficient and highly proficient students. And you'll see the percentages in there. So As a district, you can see on the left-hand side, in 2022, we had 28% of our students who were able to pass the statewide exam. And in 2023, that dropped to 25%. So we had a 3% decline in our pass rate. And we also, at the same time, you want to see the red really shrink, right? And in this case, it did also increase. Instead of shrink, it went up 2%. So those are both growth opportunities that we need to focus on this coming year. And just to give some context, the state had no change in their pass rate. So the pass rate last year was 41%, and this year was also 41%. So again, a story of stagnation there, because generally the state will also improve 3 to 4% a year. So our district, with our scores this year, were about 16% below the state average for passing in ELA. Our next slide shows our proficiency information, but now for mathematics. So again, we're looking at how students did with passing the 3rd grade mathematics exam. And in this case, we did have a slight increase. So it's not all decline and stagnation. And so we increased by 1% pass rate from 28 to 29%. And we also reduced our minimally proficient students performing in the minimally proficient category by 2%, which in many cases is even more important, especially when you see that we have so many students still performing at that level. We did not keep up with the state change in this case either. The state improved by 4% in their pass rate. So at this point, we are 14% behind the state average pass rate for math. So this is another area, a growth opportunity that we will focus on. Now I'm going to go to the school level breakdown. As we're looking at school level breakdown, just as a guideline, what I'm going to be pointing out are 5% changes. A 5% change is a significant change, either in improving the pass rate, those green and blue bars, or reducing the red, the minimally proficient, or the students who aren't showing, aren't performing, showing any proficiency at this point, or little proficiency at this point. So some celebrations for these schools that we're looking at, it is broken down. We'll look at sets of schools based on the number of students that they had tested. So the little numbers at the bottom, so next to capital, you have a 40 and a comma and a 42. The first 40 goes with the first year, which is 2022. The 42 is the number of students who tested this year for 2023. So that's what those numbers mean, is the number of our students who tested. So our celebrations that we have are Whittier improved their pass rate by 5%. We did, and then we had 3 schools, Edison, Herrera, and Whittier, who all decreased their minimally proficient, or those red bars, by 5% or more. We do have some growth opportunities where we saw at Edison, for example, an opportunity to improve as the pass rate there declined by more than 5 points, 5 percentage points. The next set of schools, there were, out of these schools, we did not have any celebrations. And we do have some growth opportunities at Garfield, Hurd, Kenilworth, and Shaw, where we saw some increases in that red bar and some decreases in our pass rate. And the last, yes, this is the last literacy slide. So here we have some celebrations. Dunbar was able to both improve their proficiency as well as reduce the minimally proficient students performing in those categories by more than 5%. And Magnet also increased their proficiency by more than 5%. And our one school with the growth opportunity here is Lowell, who this year did not have any students pass or show proficiency on the literacy, the state ELA assessment. So now I'm going to show math again by school. And here, again, we have some celebrations where Herrera was able to improve their pass rate by more than 5%, and Whittier and Herrera both reduced their minimally proficient by more than 5%. And a growth opportunity out of these schools was Edison's pass rate and trying to increase that. The next set of schools, we have a celebration. It's actually a celebration and a growth opportunity for Kenilworth, where you'll notice that the percent of students who passed declined by more than 5%, but they also reduced significantly the percent of students who were minimally proficient. What that tells me is that overall there was good teaching and we had more students moving. And that means for the future that there are more students close to proficiency that can move into that category. So that is a good trend in terms of the reduction of minimally proficient students. We do have several growth opportunities at Garfield, Hurd as well among this group for math. And then our last group of schools, both Bethune and Dunbar had celebrations in improving their proficiency and reducing their minimally proficient performance by more than 5%. Emerson also reduced their minimally proficient by more than 5%. And we do have one growth opportunity here at Magnet where the minimally proficient increased by more than 5%. So those are our school data. And the last data that I will show you are breakdown by groups. So one thing that we are committed to, obviously in our district, is equity, and we have our equity statement and goals around equity. And so we have some growth opportunities here and we know these are groups that we continue to see below our district average, and they're below by more than 20% in this case. And those are our students who receive English language services and exceptional student services. You can see our overall district or our overall average or pass rate for our district is 25%, while those groups only have 2% passing respectively. And this, we're talking early literacy. This really points to one of the needs that we know we have, and that is to build our academic language acquisition for students and really see all students as students of academic English, right? Because just because you know English doesn't mean you can be successful in school without building that academic language that will make you successful. One note, we'll go on to the last slide that I'll present. So this is the final slide. Here we're looking at the breakdown by category for math. And you can see again where we have our students who receive English language and special education services are more than 10% below our district average. And it's a gap that we need to close and something that we will need to continue to focus on. So I'll stop. Well, that's the end of the data slides that I have. I'll open up for questions at this time, and then we'll turn some time back over to Dr. Gonzalez.
All right. I don't have any questions. Board members online, do we have any questions for Dr. Gonzalez and Dr. Lloyd?
No, I don't. Thank you.
This is Dr. Bink. I don't have any questions, just a note of gratitude to Dr. Lloyd and the team and all of our students and teachers.
Thank you, Dr. Vink, and thank you both very much for the update. I love receiving these regularly and seeing where we're at and where we're going, and having those celebrations, because I feel like the more attention we give to that for our kids, that's just, it'll build up, and we'll keep holding them up here on this pedestal. So thank you both very much.
Thank you. So very quickly, we'll talk about some of our inputs that are affecting our outputs.
My apologies. I thought you
That's
were-
okay.
I-
We wanted to make sure you had a chance to think about the
Absolutely.
data and let it sink in, but the data does tell us about some changes that we need to make or some areas that we need to emphasize. And so as I mentioned earlier, this week, all of our principals, their IEISs, master teachers and learning acceleration specialists, along with our academic leadership team members and content specialists, are all in professional development looking at how to accelerate learning for our students. So this data is really important for us because it really helps us to make the case for why we cannot continue to provide remediation as our tier one. Our tier one has to be about accelerating learning. When students come in missing key concepts and we teach them as though that's the only place that they can be, they are behind by a year or two and they stay behind. And so part of the acceleration idea is that when students come in, we actually teach their concepts, but we're teaching the concepts toward the grade level standards that they need to meet. For instance, we build from a place of asset. So thinking about what do the students know? So let's use fractions as an example. If I come in and I say, okay, boys and girls, we're going to work on fractions today. I'm going to give you a test. How many of you know about the fractions? And we get a low score. I don't say, oh, okay, well, you guys aren't ready for fractions, so we're not going to teach that. We're going to teach this instead. Instead, I say, guess what? We're going to work on fractions today, and I want us to practice with something. I'm going to give you something, and I want you to think about if you had a cookie and you had to share it with a friend and you were going to share it equally, how would you do that? Now I'm building from what the students know intuitively, and I'm using that to get them to the grade level standard that I want. So now we look at this and we say, okay, we broke it in half. So let's talk about what half means there. And we talk about, and we can use the academic vocabulary to say, here's a denominator. The denominator is the number that you broke it into. The numerator is the number that we started with. So you can start to see the concepts of that, and you start to teach the students how this all comes together for them. Using this sort of a programming mindset is a shift, because what we tend to do, unfortunately, is that we say, oh, you're not ready, so I'm going to teach you this instead. This morning, we used the example of students who are in pre-algebra rather than going into algebra. What happens in those instances, they stay behind their peers who are at grade level constantly because they never have an opportunity to catch up. In the acceleration model, we're accelerating the learning not only for our students who might need additional assistance, we're also accelerating learning for those students who are already at grade level because we can customize it student by student. So this also includes opportunities, particularly in math, to work on our math manipulatives. Many of you have been in the Professional Development Center and seen the big boxes of math manipulatives that we give. The reason we use manipulatives is because it helps to build conceptual understanding of math, and it gives them a concrete tactile understanding and feeling that helps reinforce learning for all learners. It helps them to show learning if they don't have the language yet, and now we can give them the language that helps them to develop that through those manipulatives. We're also providing individualized coaching for our teachers and our administrators in the following year for our from our curriculum associates, Ready Math and Ready Classroom. And we also have weekly strategies and resources that we send out through our Curriculum Connect. Ms. Nikolic has been doing that for the past year and giving lots of updates. And then this past 2 weeks, we had over 40 teachers and master teachers and learning acceleration specialists all working together to create model lessons for each of the concepts that we're going to be teaching throughout the year. That will also be available, and we'll continue to roll that out in just-in-time spurts so that teachers are getting it as they need it. And then, of course, from our acceleration specialists and our master teachers, providing ongoing coaching in classrooms with teachers and supporting the acceleration learning model. So those are some of the inputs that we are putting into trying to change our outputs. And then as we talk about measuring these, this is again credit to Dr. Lloyd and the work that he's been doing with our IEISs and our content specialists using the iReady diagnostics and benchmark data to measure how we're doing with standards, but then also using our comprehension checks in mathematics to measure our grade level mastery. Last time we met, we talked about the oral reading fluency checks and other measures that we use to measure reading. This is where we're going to be focusing on our math mastery. And then using progress reports that show student growth toward the grade level and working with our teachers and our students on goal setting and reflecting on their learning. These are some of the new strategies that we're adding in and beefing up what we've been doing so that our outputs next year are higher than they are this year. Do you want to talk about this one?
Sure.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this isn't going to be necessarily after COVID, right? It hasn't been for anybody, I think, a steady like ascent out of this, right? And so one of the things like Dr. Gonzalez said is that students are missing certain skills. And instead of that remediation, we want to focus on trying to provide them the skills they need as we're preparing them to master grade level skills. So that's the difference there. And what this slide is showing is a shift from just trying to, okay, let's go back and reteach second grade since they didn't get it, to instead of trying to fill the holes that are essential from those second grade skills that will help them as they start learning the third grade skills. And that's part of accelerating rather than remediating. And the other main thing that we have to focus on is really doing this one by one, like Dr. Gonzalez said, both in our instruction as well as in our learning plans and goals for each student. And so that is something that we have to do one by one, know each of our students, what they need to learn, how they learn, and try to focus on growing each student at the highest rate possible. That's the end of our presentation.
Thank you. That does conclude our presentation.
Thank you both very much. Any further questions from our board this evening?
This is Dr. Bink. Just a note. My biggest concern remains the amount of time that teachers have to prep and learn and prepare and implement these things. So I don't know how we're serving teachers or temperature checking throughout the year to see if they feel like they have enough time or if they are overwhelmed, or how we report that back. But I would like to figure out how that all fits into raising our scores. That's all. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that, Dr. Vink, and thank you both again for the added clarity and all the information and the heads up of what's going on for our teachers and what we can look forward to for next year. With that, we will move on to item 6.2. This space we're going to have going forward with our student outcomes focused governance model. And I just wanted to be able to give our board an update on the items that we've covered. We just hit our break for this summer and we'll restart back up in August. So we'll be adding some more documents to the Google folder for review and reading from for our board and cabinet, our whole team. We've covered things from board agenda evaluation to monitor the time spent on, how long our discussions go, if we're talking about, equipment versus students, and really how to monitor those things going forward. So that's one of the things we've gone through. We've covered some monitoring and just getting to look at other districts across the nation, their guardrails, and getting an insight to what they're facing. So I believe this summer we'll be getting through a couple of policies that we wanted to, not a couple of them. I know we've got our policy diet coming up. We have to get our monitoring calendar in place for how the next year is going to go for just staying on task with all of our goals and all of our guardrails, so that way they're not done in one big lump sum. If we just had them all covered in, a session this evening, it would take us a lot longer, but a monitoring calendar allows us to split them up. It allows the community and cabinet, everybody involved to know, to have that predictability about what we are going to cover for each board meeting coming up and how that plays its role in the data that we'll be posting on our website. So that's my quick update. Did I miss anything, Ms. Bueno? Or do you have any additions to share? Oh, and if there's any questions from the rest of the board, we are going to be meeting with our coach tomorrow. So any questions could be sent into Dr. Hagigat for that discussion tomorrow. Sorry for the interruption.
No, thank you. That's what I was just going to mention, that we have our coaching check-in tomorrow. And I think that's when we're going to start talking about developing the monitoring calendar.
Any questions from our other board members or any discussion items, feedback?
No.
All right, hearing none, we can move on to item 7-1, receive and take action on our fiscal year 2023-2024 proposed budget as presented and as required in ARS 15-905E.
I'd like to invite Mr. Manley to share that information with us.
Thank you. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Okay. Governing Board President, Governing Board, Cabinet members and community. I'm excited to bring to you guys our proposed budget for FY24. As I had shared, the process for budget adoption at this board meeting, the administration is asking to accept the proposed budget. Following the proposed budget, we'll post for a public hearing for 10 days. And then the governing board would have the opportunity to approve the adopted budget at the next governing board meeting. If you draw your attention to the presentation that we put together, before I actually, you can go ahead and go to the next slide. We talked briefly. Oh, except for that I have. Okay, what's going on here? There's gremlins here. This follows statute, and that ARS 15-905 asks that we have district and charter budgets adopted no later than July 15th. So this process gives us plenty of time to look at the proposed budget, have a healthy hearing meeting time for the 10 days, and then have time to adopt the budget at the following governing board meeting. I'm gonna let you push the button because I think I'm confusing myself with the buttons. Before I get started on the actual amounts, some highlights from ADE and statute. So we had mentioned at the May revision that our ADM had gone down. I projected our ADM to continue to go down by approximately 4.9%. That's based on a 5-year trend analysis of what our enrollment has been. However, if you look at our M&O budget total, it actually has gone up a bit. Like I had mentioned previously, our proportion of weighted students continues to outpace our decline a bit, which has been helping us with the ADM. Additionally, there was a $300 million one-time state aid package that the state adopted. I learned that Phoenix Elementary School District represents 0.4242% of the percentage of students statewide that are enrolled in a public district. And so that, along with the Prop 123 money that was divided by that similar proportion of students that we have, that gave us an additional $1.59 million in M&O for a one-time for this upcoming school year. And additionally, statute requires that the inflation goes up by 2%. And this year, this last school year was the last year that results-based funding is a thing in the state. So they took the results-based funding that was based on scores and they wrapped that into the M&O budget. So that represented another 0.9% increase to our M&O budget, which gave us a 2.9% increase, which gives more money per pupil. If you look at the proposed budget that we're proposing, regular education and special education are outpacing the 23 budget by a bit. We're putting more attention to our human capital. Transportation The K-3 reading program, DSEG, were based on expenditures. So I took a look at what we spent this year and then wrapped them into the proposed budget here for this next year. But again, our M&O total for this upcoming fiscal year would be 57,363, 874. And then on the 40th day, we'll have the opportunity to revise this if we need to. If you look at the next page, this represents our capital funds. We actually had a pretty healthy rollover of our unrestricted capital from this year into next year. In addition, so that we actually have over $9 million for capital projects. Our adjacent ways, we've had that funding in our accounts for quite some time. This last year, we budgeted $250,000 out of that fund. There's no tax levies involved in these adjacent ways funds that are currently in the treasury for us. So I went ahead and I put the full amount that we already have that wouldn't affect any of our tax rates. And that represents a $1.876 million amount for our adjacent ways funds. Those funds need to be accessed through the school facilities board. So there's a separate process, but it's good to know that we have those for egress and things along for our school. So that for our district. So that basically put us at over almost $11 million for our capital funds this coming school year. If you look at the next page, we had a pretty healthy rollover from our classroom site funds. That represents the amount that we had rolled over. This is based on the 100th day count from last year with that percentage that 0.42. I didn't know that that was going to be an important number as I had my calculator out doing some of these, but we're looking at having a budget out of the classroom site fund of over $8 million this upcoming year. The special projects funds, if you take a look, you'll notice a big dip in the federal grants funds. That represents our ESSER and CARES funds leaving the state. So we still have a healthy amount coming out of ESSER 2 and ESSER 3. And that represents our other federal grants as well. But again, we need to start planning on not this school year, but next September when those funds expire. So we're planning on have those budgeted for. The other funds are all the funds that aren't accounted for in the federal grants or the M&O budget, indirect costs and those pieces. So we had 13.368 million for that. The food service fund, we had 3.8 million budgeted last year. We have the capacity and with the expenses looking at 4 million for this upcoming year. And that gives us the special project total down $25 million. Again, that's because of the federal funds leaving the state for the most part through ESSER. The last part are some references that reference the statutes and where this information had come from. It's all based on the USFR. And we are following statute to give us the most fiscally appropriate budget possible for this upcoming school year. And I'd be happy to attempt to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Manley. Do
Thank
we
you
have
so
any questions from our board?
No.
All right. Care to explain how we are adopting or voting on this budget tonight in order to have our hearing and then be prepared for our June 27th meeting?
Yes, ma'am. So statute dictates that we need to have a proposed budget in place and adopted by the governing board, which then gives the public the chance over the next, I plan on posting this either early tomorrow morning or depending on how late this goes, maybe tonight, if I'm feeling ambitious. That gives the community and the public a chance to take a look at what we've posted, that we've agreed to post, and then we can adopt that budget after that hearing period is completed.
Okay, motion that we approve the fiscal year 2023-24 proposed budget.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Reggie Carrillo, I second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, may we please have a roll call vote, Mrs. Valencia, to adopt our proposed budget?
Roll call for Ms. Jessica Bueno,
Aye.
Mr. Regional Carrillo,
Aye.
Dr. Alicia Vink,
Aye.
and Ms. Carmen Trujillo.
Aye.
Thank you.
With that, our motion passes. And thank you very much for setting us up for success.
Thank you. I'm going to save steps and just stay right here for the next one.
Right. Okay, with that, we'll move on to item G2, which is our performance pay Prop 301 plan.
Mr. Manley, over to you again.
So governing board, superintendent and community, I'm very happy to stand before you to present our next year's Prop 301 plan. By statute, requires school district governing boards to adopt a performance-based compensation system, formerly known as the 301 plan at a public meeting. This 23-24 performance Prop 301 plan has been created by the Prop 301 committee, reviewed by cabinet and approved by 96% of our educators who voted. That represents 121 out of 126 of our educators that voted. The committee met several times from October through May to create this plan that was aligning the outcomes of the PECTA meet and confer process and the compensation analysis conducted by the JV reward system. The committee has found that this plan is fair as possible to all educators, and it prioritizes the CSF funds, the monies to supplement the base salary, and placing a smaller financial emphasis on the pay for performance. And so this plan represents the classroom site fund base salary supplements. So for the 23-24 plan, it utilizes the CSF revenue of about $2 million in compensation increases for staff who qualified for this funding. So these supplements were raised from $1,500 to $2,500 in 22-23 and will vary from educator to educator this upcoming school year, depending on their placement on the salary ranges, ensuring that the full-time educators receive at least the $2,500 in base salary supplement. In addition, the retention stipends with longevity from the 22-23 school year would be added to the base salary, therefore becoming part of the base salary supplement. In addition, there was individual performance-based compensation, or the PBC. And so while Phoenix #1 has offered PBC at a high level since 2014, the committee recommended using the bulk of the classroom site funds for the base salary supplements described in the first component. The results in less performance pay based on compensation in the past years, but adds money to the base salary. In the hopes that this lowers the level of performance-based compensation will allow educators to refocus on the true purpose of the evaluation process, improving instructional practice through feedback and reflection, with a focus on the growth that is meaningful and relevant to the educator. And that should support Dr. Lloyd's presentation previously. So this performance-based pay is shifted to highly effective. That would be a $500 stipend. The effective would be $250, and developing would be a $50 performance-based pay. In addition, the school-based performance-based compensation is affected by the letter grades that our schools get. So if you take a look at the chart, there's highly effective or effective. So it depends on your school grade and how you've been evaluated. So highly effective in an A would get you either 300 or 250 if you're effective. A B would be at $250 or $200 if you're effective. Improvement on points, but the same letter grade, which is important. If you're highly effective, it's $100. And if you were ineffective, it's $75. So using carry forward from the increased revenue in 22-23 and fairly conservative projections for future revenue, this plan should be fully sustainable for the next 3 school years. And I'm sure in the next 3 years, we'll have plenty of changes to consider as well. But that, in a nutshell, is the nuts and bolts of the Prop 301 plan. If you look at the actual plan pay, I'd like to first thank all of the members of the 301 committee. They're listed here. It's both teachers, staff, and administration. I think that they did a fantastic job following the recommendations of what they were tasked to do. The eligibility and qualifications for receiving the performance-based plan are listed out here. They follow the statute 15501 in that the instructional, this gave us permission to make sure that the IEISs and interventionists are eligible for this under if they're under a certificated contract. And then in 2021-22, they changed the law, 1139, changed the law and allowed us to include a number of our employees that previously were left out of the performance-based, the 301 bucket. And those positions are listed on the top of page 2. It's a pretty comprehensive list. I know personally I was confused. I thought that classroom IAs should be getting this, but that's not how the law was written. So I disagree with how that went down, but at least we got some of these folks into where they need to be as well. For the performance-based compensation, it's aligned with their LOI or their evaluation tool. This lists the various evaluation tools that the district's employs for our different employee groups. Performance-based compensation, the completion of the minimum number of observation cycles. So to be considered for the performance pay, you need to follow the protocol for being evaluated by your administrator. Only teachers that have been employed since January 5th, or sorry, educators, I'm going to say educators because it's not just teachers, that were employed on or before January 15th of 2024 are eligible for the performance-based compensation. And then the generation of an effectiveness rating based on your observation and student growth could be considered. Other important eligibility information, educators that use their leave time for FMLA aren't, as long as they participate in the minimum number of evaluation cycles, they're eligible as well. Educators that resigned at the end of this year and until they decide to come back here will be eligible for the PBC under this plan for performance-based pay. So that was from what was agreed to last year. Placement on the improvement plan does not, or placement on a PIP does not exclude you from this, so long as you're meeting the requirements of that PIP. And we talked a bit about the base salary supplement. So again, all of our employees will be getting at least the $2,500 put into their base. This overall cost the classroom site fund about $2 million in compensation increases that was funded through the CSF, and the retention stipends and the longevity were baked into the base salaries. The projected cost for all of this is about $5.3 million. If you looked at our proposed budget for the CSF, we're well above that amount. So it's a healthy amount. When you look at the individual performance-based compensation of the PBC for effectiveness in 2023, while we've offered a higher rate of performance-based pay since 2024, like I had mentioned, the emphasis has gone into the base salaries for this year with a performance-based component. This follows up with what I've already discussed about the letter grades, and if you're highly effective and effective, what your PBC would look like. And there's an appeals process. So according to our governing board process, GCO, a teacher may make a written appeal if they're in disagreement with the process or believes that the procedural violation has taken place for how they get their PBC. And that teacher would have the burden of the proof in the appeal, and that appeal would go directly to the superintendent or their designee, which is the director of human resources. So that there's some facts at the back of the sheet, which is the pieces that I just covered. And so if there's any questions, I could attempt to answer them.
Thank you very much. Any questions from our board members online? Comments or questions? My apologies.
No.
All right. I also don't have any. The plan answered my main question, which was wanting to know who was eligible for this in black and white finally. So I'm glad to have that statute here listed on here. So thank you to everybody that was on the committee. I don't have any further questions. All right, with that, may we please have a roll call vote, Mrs. Valencia?
Oh, first, motion to approve the 23-24 performance pay Prop 301 plan.
Thank you.
Alicia Fink, I'll second it.
Thank you very much. Any other discussion? Hearing none, may we please have our roll call vote now?
Yes, roll call for Ms. Jessica Bueno,
Aye.
Mr. Regional Carrillo,
Aye.
Dr. Alicia Vink,
Aye.
and Ms. Carmen Trujillo.
Aye. With that, our motion passes. Congratulations, our performance pay Prop 301 plan is in place now. We'll move to our next action item, G3, requesting approval of our governing board meetings schedule. Are we able to put it up on the screen?
I'm gonna rely on our technology team. If they can grab it from there and post it, that would be fantastic. I'll talk really, really slow, Mr. McAfee. Okay, so here we are getting ready for our academic year, our 23-24 school year, and based on our board policy BE, the governing board shall hold a regular meeting at least once each month during the calendar year. The board meeting calendar is proposed by administration, approved by the governing board, and published to the for the public. And so as soon as we are able to get it up, these are the board meetings that administration is proposing for the 23-24 school year.
I just wanted to point out, I think in one of our officer check-ins, we had discussed the board retreat in September.
Yes, and that would be a part of a study session. And so we'll be able to make those choices around when it's best, and then we can bring it back so that we can utilize that as a way of sharing with our public. These only include our regular board meetings.
Okay.
The other area that we discussed, and I just wanted to share, was around a Zoom meeting on January 9th. And you don't see it here because based on the research that I was able to do, it says that we do not need to have board officer elections during that time, but we certainly can have it at any other time as well. And so that meeting was not necessary for that purpose.
Okay, thank you for the update. I just want to maybe just touch on why we're moving to once a month meetings instead of our every other month meeting, week meeting. And I don't remember, so please somebody.
Yes, our work
thank
for our work for student our with Dr. Ramos as part of our student outcomes focused governance gives us the opportunity to meet once a month so that our board has ample amount of time to review at least 10 days in advance the information, and we continue to have our main focus around student outcomes. This is going to be new for us, and so we're buckling up and getting ready for this experience.
Thank you.
So to clarify, we'll come back once we decide what dates we're going to have for our board retreat, and then we'll treat that as a study session or something like that. Okay. And then, all right, as long as we have that clarification for January and then for our board retreat, do we have a motion to approve our governing board meeting schedule?
Jessica Bueno, so moved.
Alicia Binkle, second.
Any further discussion? Thank you both. Hearing none, may we please have a roll call vote? Mrs. Valencia.
Roll call for Ms. Jessica Bueno,
Aye.
Mr. Regional Carrillo,
Aye.
Dr. Alicia Vink,
Aye.
and Ms. Carmen Trujillo.
Aye. With that, our motion passes and we now have our schedule to follow for the summer. With that, we'll move to item G4 to request approval of our site council meeting schedule. Are we able to bring that document up? Sorry about that, Randy. Wonderful.
Okay, so this governing board site council is going to serve the purpose of two-way community communication meetings right now sites we have to be determined, and they are intended to be about 1 hour in length, and we are going to have an opportunity to engage with our community members in this way. Is there anything else that you may want to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to just emphasize that this is also our work around student outcome focused governance. And I wanted to have a discussion about identifying each of those sites because we clearly just got the data around 3rd and 8th grade reading and mathematics. So I just wanted to elaborate that the purpose behind the site councils is to focus on our student outcomes and then other issues that may arise in that conversation. But I'm ready to suggest which are the sites. Okay, in September, I have Lowell, October, Bethune, November, Capital, December, Edison, January, Hurd, February, Whittier, March, Garfield, and April, Herrera. And that's based off of our highest needs, based off of our data.
Can you say one more time, please? Lowell, Bethune, Capital.
So Lowell, Bethune, Capital, Edison, Hurd, Whittier, Garfield, and Herrera.
I'm in support of those.
Thank
Any
you. So am
questions?
I.
Yes, thank you, Ms.
This
Bueno.
is Dr. Bink. Just to confirm, families from any of the sites would be able to attend, correct?
Well, the intent is that it's at that specific site, so the data would be reflective of that site. And so the intent is also to provide resources around what are the practices that the families can be encouraging at home too. I think after seeing the data, we can all see where we need all hands on deck, and that's the intent behind spreading that message out to the community as well.
Okay.
Thank you for clarifying and thanks for asking that question. Yeah, because I guess it wouldn't be anything more generalized. It's going to be site specific, so makes sense. Any other questions? Hearing none, may we please have a motion to approve our proposed site council meeting schedule? Meeting dates, I guess I should say.
Alicia Vink, so moved.
Roger Carrillo, a second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, may we please have a roll call vote to adopt this item?
Yes, roll call for Ms. Jessica Bueno,
Aye.
Mr. Regional Carrillo,
Aye.
Dr. Alicia Vink,
Aye.
and Ms. Carmen Trujillo.
Aye. With that, our motion passes. And at this time, we will adjourn to an executive session. We're going to move into an executive session for discussion or consultation for legal advice with our district attorney. Regarding any item on our agenda, no decisions will be made while we are in executive session, and we probably would be in there for about an hour, hour and a half. Again, no decisions will be made, and this executive session is for the purpose of conducting the 2022-2023 superintendent evaluation pursuant to governing board policy CBI. Do we have a motion to adjourn to executive session?
Jessica Bueno, so moved.
Roger Carrillo, a second.
Thank you very much. With that, may we please have a roll call vote to adjourn to executive session?
Yes, roll call for Ms. Jessica Bueno,
Aye.
Mr. Regional Carrillo,
Aye.
Dr. Alicia Vink,
Aye.
and Ms. Carmen Trujillo.
Aye. With that, our motion passes and we will be back out shortly. For those staying with us, thank you for your patience, and those who will be leaving us, We look forward to having you attend our next meeting, June 27th at 5:15. All right, thank you very much. Oh, I can hear me. It is 7:50 and I'd like to ask for a motion for us to resume to regular session, please.
Jessica Bueno, so moved.
Reggie Carrillo, I second.
Thank you both. Mrs. Valencia, may I please have a roll call vote?
Roll call for Ms. Jessica Bueno,
Aye.
Mr. Reginald Carrillo,
Aye.
Dr. Alicia Vink, and Ms. Carmen Trujillo.
Aye. With that, we can resume to regular session at 7:51 and move on to item I1, board reports and requests. So do we have any board requests this evening? Hearing none, we'll move on to item I2, future agenda items. Do we have any future agenda items to request? Hearing none as well. Let's move on to item J1. Do we have a motion to adjourn our meeting this evening at 7:52?
Jessica Bueno, so moved.
Reggie
Thank
Carrillo,
you.
I second.
Thank you both very much. Mrs. Valencia, may we please have a roll call vote to adjourn our meeting this evening?
Roll call for Ms. Jessica Bueno,
Aye.
Dr. Alicia Vink, Mr. Reginald Carrillo,
Aye.
and Ms. Carmen Trujillo.
Aye. With that, our meeting is adjourned and we will see everybody back here June 27th at 5:15 PM. Thank you all. Have a good night. Drive safe.